Welcome to the YouTube edition of the Storywise podcast. This segment is just part of a full 1-hour interview which you can hear on iTunes and at grisanticonsultancy.com.
Welcome to Storywise, the podcast designed to give you the in-depth story behind some of our top storytellers as a way to inform, motivate, and inspire you to believe that you too can make your dreams a reality. My name is Jen Grisanti. I am the story career consultant at Jen Grisanti Consultancy, Inc., a writer's consultancy designed to help you accomplish your writing goals and reach your career destination. And I am so honored to have with me as my guest today, Seth Greenland. Welcome, Seth.
Thanks, Jen. It's a pleasure to be in this basement.
I know.
In your dungeon.
Close quarters. Little do our listeners know. So let me tell you a little bit about Seth. Seth Greenland is a novelist, playwright, and screenwriter. His second novel, Shining City, was published by Bloomsbury in 2008 and has been translated into French, Dutch, Italian, and Chinese. Movie rights have been purchased by Warner Brothers. The Bones, his debut novel, was published by Bloomsbury in 2005 and has been translated into French. Movie rights were optioned by Sony. His first play, Jungle Rot, was the recipient of the Kennedy Center American Express Fund for New American Plays Award and the American Theater Critics Association Award. It was published by Dramatist Play Service and anthologized in Best American Plays 1995-1996. His other produced plays include Jerusalem, a finalist for the Critics Award, Red Memories, and Girls in Movies. He is currently working on the HBO series Big Love. Mr. Greenland was one of the original bloggers on the Huffington Post and continues to contribute to the site. His work has also appeared in the Los Angeles Times, Newsday, Chicago Tribune, and the Baltimore Sun, written by and the literary journal Black Clock. His writing has been nominated for the Pushcart Prize. He has taught at the UCLA Writers Program and guest lectured at NYU, USC, and UC Riverside. He lives in Los Angeles with his wife, Susan Kaiser Greenland, and their 2 children. Wow, that's a lot. That's quite a background.
Yeah, well, it's you live long enough and things start to accumulate.
That is amazing. Well, what I love is the variety of platforms that you have worked in writing-wise. Did you always know that you wanted to write?
Well, it was the one thing that I was always good at. I didn't know anybody who was making a living doing it as a kid. You know, I grew up in a suburb of New York City, and the dads all commuted to jobs in offices, and it was like the Mad Men era.
Right,
and
I love it.
So I didn't know any writers or actors or directors or ballet dancers or opera singers, and that was just a world that was very far away, another planet, really. So no, I had no inclination professionally to be a writer because I didn't think that it was something that I could do or would be set up to do or that my parents would want me to do. It just was completely not on my radar. I wanted to be on the New York Knicks.
I love it. That's great.
Actually.
So did you write as a child?
Yeah, I did. I
Okay.
wrote stories for fun and as a little kid, really in elementary school. And then by the time I got to high school, I was just looking to do as little as possible in every possible way. So I can't claim that I came home after school and did writing.
And knew that this was your destiny.
Far
which
from
it
it.
Definitely is.
No, I napped a lot.
What?
Actually. That was what I did in high school. Yeah.
What would you say when it comes to writing is, say, your favorite part and your least favorite part?
Oh, my favorite part is doing it, and my least favorite part is doing it. And it just has to do with how that particular day is going. I'm starting to gear up now after the holidays. It's your listeners will note it's taken me about a month since the holidays ended a while ago, and getting geared up on these projects right now that I'm trying to work on has been very, very difficult for whatever reason. And but once I start going, and it things start flowing, which they usually do, it'll become less of a struggle. And then you have good days, and those are terrific. And you hope you have more good days than frustrating days at your desk. And then that's how the pages accumulate and you produce what you produce.
How now projects that you're working on, say, so Big Love you're just coming off of. Yes?
Yeah, we finished that. They're still cutting it, actually. They're still cutting the final season, but I finished in early December.
Great. I look forward to it. That's one of my favorite shows on TV.
Well,
I
thank you.
have to say, I'm so excited to see this season. But before jumping into Big Love, I definitely want to go into your background as a blogger, a playwright, and a novelist.
Sure.
Because I'm fascinated by this. So which came first?
Well, I actually started out, I went to film school. And I'll back up even further. I was a journalist. And I took a year between college and graduate school. And during that year, I was a reporter for a newspaper in New York City called the Soho Weekly News.
Oh, yeah.
And I sold a freelance article that I wrote on spec to Parade magazine. And they paid me what then was just a tremendous amount of money, given that I had nothing. I was 22 or 23 years old, and I got a check for $1,200 for writing an article. And I thought, man, you can make some money doing this, and maybe you can have a career at it. And I, tried to be a freelance writer for a while, and it was incredibly difficult. And I had applied to film school in the meantime, and then
where'd you go to film school?
I got an MFA from NYU,
great,
from Tisch.
Yeah, great.
And I got out of film school a few years later, and came out here and wrote a spec script for Cheers, and which was a new show at the time.
Yeah.
And I, through a series of events, was able to get it to a kind of a big shot producer, and he took a liking to me, and I got a staff job. And that was about, I don't know, I guess about a year.
For Cheers?
No,
Oh,
for
okay.
a show that he was doing, an ABC
great,
show. And
great.
And that was about a year after graduate school, and I've been working ever since.
Wow.
So
that's
yeah, so
amazing.
I never really did anything else in terms of a career. I've just been a writer my entire career.
So now it's fascinating because now I would say that the trend is more that writers write original pilots
Yeah.
than they write specs.
Sure.
But I love that your first spec was Cheers. Do you remember anything about your spec that stood out?
Yeah, well, God, what was it? It was a film crew wanted to use the bar or something. I mean, it was so long ago. I can hardly remember. But it was, I guess I executed it fairly well, and
Right.
it would, it
And was
got
that
me
one
a
of
gig.
your first TV scripts?
It was my first TV script. I'd never written a TV script
That's
before.
amazing.
Yeah, and I was lucky, and because I met this guy,
Yeah.
and it was
See, networking and relationships.
yeah.
are
It's
huge.
everything.
Yeah.
It's everything. And it was a guy I had met at a political fundraiser in New York, and he was as I said, a pretty successful guy, and he
Right.
took a liking to me and gave me this break, which was huge, because I did that for a year and didn't like living in Los Angeles, and moved back east, and was lucky enough to start getting hired. I wrote a couple of spec screenplays, and I started getting jobs writing screenplays.
Wow.
Back east.
Great.
And, I was doing that, and then began writing plays, and then started writing novels, and wound up back in television. So everything as a drama writer, though, not because I started as a comedy writer.
See, it's fascinating to me because Big Love is so not comedy.
Right.
I mean,
Although with funny bits. It does have
there
little
are
funny bits.
Well, I think right now there's humor in almost every drama on
Mm-hmm.
television. And I think it's great for comedy writers who are transitioning over because they can still get value out of their humor.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're so right. I mean, that really is the trend with the 1 hours. I mean, they're really funny bits sprinkled into these really dark premises.
Yeah.
So it's a good muscle to have.
And so with now it's interesting. So you were playwriting and novel writing. So clearly, screenplay writing. None of those are a sure thing financially until you hit. And even when you hit, playwriting never really becomes something you do for the money. Is that correct?
No, it never is. I mean, really,
Right.
I think Neil Simon was the last guy to really make a living doing it, and even the really successful writers, the successful playwrights, the David Mammots and the Tony Kushners or the Sam Shepherds. I mean, those guys are produced everywhere. So in purely financial terms, I mean, I guess if you get produced at 30 regional theaters, that does add up. But it's not like what you make as a screenwriter or something.
Right.
You do it because you love it.
Right.
Really.
And now with your plays, what would you say is your favorite play?
Of the
that you've written?
four full-length plays I've had produced, my favorite one is probably Red Memories, which was done at New York Stage and Film in Vassar. They're, the summer theater that happens at Vassar.
Yeah.
And it's a play about the Cambridge spies, who were these Cambridge-educated guys who were these upper-class fellows in England in the 1950s who turned out to be working for the KGB. And I won't go into the whole story about what happened.
Oh, that sounds intriguing,
But
though.
it's a terrific subject and a little-known story here. And it has the play that I wrote had a lot of music by Gilbert and Sullivan, to which I rewrote lyrics that were germane to the story I was telling. And it all takes place in the mind of a guy called James Jesus Angleton, who was a CIA spy catcher during that time, who knew one of the Cambridge spies very, very well and was completely played by them, and a lot of people think was actually literally driven mad by what happened. And he served until the Ford administration when he was finally fired. And it's his reflections, it's his memory of what occurred at that time. So it's this story refracted through the mind of somebody who may or may not be going crazy, with Gilbert and Sullivan music. So
Wow.
What's not to like?
First of all, I love the title.
Oh, thank you.
I think that's a beautiful title. And I have to say, the concept sounds like it would translate to television and film. So is that a play that has maybe helped you in either arena?
It helped me.
It?
It helped me insofar as it got me a 2-picture deal at Fox 2000 when it was done, which was in the 90s. But that went nowhere, like so many things. And I certainly didn't do it to succeed in Hollywood. I mean, I did it because I loved the subject matter, and it was a terrific experience to actually do the play. Roger Rees directed it, who had won a Tony for acting in Nicholas Nickleby, which was that extraordinary Royal Shakespeare Company production that was done in the 80s in New York on Broadway. And it was possibly the most fun I've ever had doing anything professionally.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it was just terrific. So it was a great experience. And yeah, it opened up some stuff in Hollywood totally inadvertently. I mean, that was not what I was looking to do with that play. I was just looking to have a really great and fulfilling, creative experience, which it was.
And it's interesting to me because of the novel writing, the playwriting, and the screenwriting, which are all very solo type careers. What was it like for you to go from the isolation more into working in a writer's room? What was that?
Well, I had written, it's funny because I started out in a writer's room.
Right.
And a comedy room. And it was,
comedy room is very social.
Yeah, and I didn't dig it, honestly.
Yeah.
Because, I certainly I can be funny when I want to be funny, but in a comedy room, it's really, it's an abattoir. If you're not funny, if everything out of your mouth isn't funny, you die a little bit. A little guy inside you keels over every time you say something and no one laughs. And
that's honest,
which is fine, but and I could do it, but just having to be on like that, it turned me
exhausting.
It was exhausting, and then you just feel hostile.
Yeah, really,
and I feel hostile enough ordinarily that I don't need it exacerbated by my work situation. So I worked after I started playwriting. I got back into a comedy room again. I worked on a show called Arliss on HBO.
Oh yeah.
I did a season on Arliss about, 8 or 9 years ago. It was the last season of Arliss. And that was a comedy room, but it wasn't, Robert Wall, who ran the room, who played Arliss, was adamant that it wasn't a sitcom.
Right.
So, and I won't get into whether it was or it wasn't, but it was a half-hour single camera. And it wasn't like everything had to be funny. We did some pretty dark stories. And one of the scripts I wrote starred James Coburn, who's an actor I love, as a really...
Thank you for listening. You can hear this interview in its entirety along with dozens more on the Storywise podcast. Just go to iTunes or GrisantiConsultancy.com.